Welcome to the First Year Pros podcast. My name is Zach Tacey, and our guest today is Erin Horil. She's coming in with great energy, great vibes, and great experience. So with all that, let's jump in.
Hello.
Good morning, Erin. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am doing quite well.
Good.
Good to see you so soon.
Yeah. Crazy.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and let you introduce yourself briefly. Got the record and all kicked off, and so yeah, just go ahead and give us a quick introduction to yourself, and welcome to the First Year Pros podcast.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me on. This is such a cool idea. My name's Erin Horil. I I guess I don't know what information you want. I do triathlon.
Just general information. If you want to go, like we'll go through background, your qualifying races. We'll go through all that stuff. So just like a sort of brief introduction, and then we'll get more into it in a little bit.
Sounds good. Yeah. So I'm Erin. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I guess as far as profession goes, I am a triathlon / endurance coach for Endorphin Fitness. Um, I've been doing that for almost 7 years now. I went to James Madison University for undergrad in kinesiology, got my master's degree in exercise physiology, mostly because I didn't know what I wanted to do. Um, and the program was just absolutely fantastic, so I didn't really want to leave. And then I moved to Richmond straight out of my master's program and started working for Endorphin. That's just, yeah, general. I'm a big cat lover and animal lover in general. I love movement. I like doing different things that excite me. Like I do some rock climbing, ultimate frisbee, super fun. I take a break from frisbee though, because pretty high injury potential there, and I'm trying to not.
Yep.
Hurt.
Yep. I remember back in high school, our cross country team on Fridays would play ultimate frisbee, and like you can get a good workout doing it, but
Oh yeah,
like you said, the potential for injury was very high, and we were very competitive. So it
yeah,
got to a point where our coach basically was like, "No, we're not doing that anymore.
yeah.
y'all aren't allowed to do that."
That's fun. Yeah, I know a lot of runners got introduced to ultimate frisbee during cross country for
Yep.
recovery days, which never really ended up being recovery.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, yeah, and
Awesome. Well, oh, sorry, I
I was
interrupted you.
gonna say, I think that's pretty much it. I like spending time outside, and I've been like totally obsessing over my vegetable garden recently. But that's kind of like all my quick things, I guess.
Awesome, I love it. And yeah, so I mean, clearly, we're on here because this is your first year as a pro athlete, but as a coach and with all the other fitness activities you do, I'd love to jump into some of that stuff later on in the interview as well. Just going into some of that balance and the importance of being able to do this, doing a sport professionally while still living a life and doing other active things. So I definitely want to touch on some of that. But to kick things off, I would love to talk about your pro debut first. We're just gonna hit the ground running here. Clash Miami in March, right?
Yep.
Awesome. Why don't you give us a quick little rundown of how that went for you?
Yeah. So it was quite the roller coaster for a few reasons. Um, so basically, I decided to go down to Florida about, I guess, 2 weeks before the race. The first week I was in Florida, I went to Claremont, which is kind of near Orlando, because for like the entire time I was in college, I was on the triathlon club, and we would go to Claremont during spring break and do training. And it was during those training camps I learned about the Claremont draft legal races that they have, and I started racing those. But basically, I was really wanting to go down to Florida and get a little bit of heat acclimation in, since it's not super hot in Virginia usually. Although
Not
we did
yet.
75-degree day like right before I left. Um, and I went with my friend Amanda, and we are doing something in June together, like a whole big thing that we can talk about later if you want.
Okay, awesome.
But we wanted to do some training together, and so that was really awesome. We had a blast, and we worked ourselves really hard. And then the next week, I kind of tapered into Clash Miami. Um, the race experience as a whole with that organization was one of the best I've ever had. I cannot say enough good things about Clash Endurance and how they put their events on, how they care for the athletes. the CEO of the company was out like giving people hugs and high fives during
That's
the 8
awesome.
races even. Like that is just like so unique. So I absolutely loved that. It was so cool to me to like be sitting in the like the pro athlete briefing and to see like Lionel Sanders walk in the room.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fangirl of lots of different, I mean, I'm just like a very like passionate person in general. And
I
I
can
have
pick
no
up on that a little bit.
problem being a fangirl or anything. People know that about me, but like I definitely freeze up when I meet those people or even see them. And so I was like sitting there and I was like, don't look at me, Lionel. Like it's just so um so then the actual race, I was really in good spirits. I actually was not expecting very much coming out of that race because well, I guess like kind of near the end of last year, starting in like the spring, well, I guess that's not the end of the year. Like spring, summer, I got a stress fracture in my femur. And so this was my first race back. I'd only been running for a couple of months and I hadn't done like any intensity. So swim went actually better than I expected. The bike was okay. It was super fun going around the race. We were on the road, so it was like small, like 2-ish-mile loops, but pretty squiggly at some points and then pretty fast at other. I was just absolutely flabbergasted at the speed of some of the top women in the field. Like I was like, sweet, getting lapped again. Like
Oh no. Oh no.
in the age group category, I was always a little stronger, like relatively in the field on the bike. And so that was a little shocking. But I also expected it. Like I know these women bike really fast, really fast. And then on the run, I made a very big mistake, which I never would have done this before because it was a 10-mile run. But I decided to leave my socks in transition 1 and not put them on because I was like in a rush and I was trying to like get onto the bike course and stay within sight of the women I came out with on the bike. And so I left my socks. And we did not go back to that transition area. We had another transition area for the second transition. So I didn't get my socks.
Oh no.
They weren't at that one.
Was it just like sort of a slip of mind in the moment, or?
I really quick was like, I don't have the time to put these socks on because I want to stay within sight of these women.
Yep.
I said, like I wouldn't wear socks for an Olympic. So I was like, oh, it's not that much longer than an Olympic. I'll be fine. So I left my socks.
Gotcha.
I never would have done for a 10-mile run. Like if I actually sat down for more than, I mean, I wasn't sitting, but if I thought about it for more than like 10 seconds.
Well, when you're in mid race, sometimes you don't have 10 seconds to think. I mean, I know even for me, like when I go through transitions, it's, get there, get stuff on, go. Like go as quick as you can.
Right.
And I imagine especially in the pro field when there's a lot more mentality, like a mental aspect to it as well, trying to keep up with that group. I can see how that would be, that split decision right there.
Yeah. But what just like completely blows my mind is like I normally wouldn't even let that be a decision I had to make. It would have been like, don't even like, just without question, I'm putting on the socks. So it was just nervous. I mean, it was like my first pro race. And so I, give myself that. But like 2 or 3 miles into the run, I developed these like terrible blisters, which totally expected, honestly. I was also trying out a new pair of, not new, a new iteration of the race shoes I'd been wearing.
And what do you wear?
Well, I was wearing the Carbon X from Hoka.
Okay.
Just released the 3s, but the 3s have a little more space in the whole shoe, and I already have like pretty small feet. Like I really should probably be in a size or half size down. But they don't make any shoes smaller than a 5. So anyways, I think I was also sliding around a little more than I normally would. And so the blisters were pretty quick and they were like so bad. And I had to stop at the aid stations, try to put Band-Aids would fall off. I was like stuffing like empty Ziploc bags that they were giving to us that had ice in them, like in my shoe to try and prayer. And so my run ended up being like slower than my easy run from the week before. And I was like the last one, like the literal last person, but I just decided to like lean into it. And I was making jokes with the aid stations. I'll be like, hey, is there a preem for like who soaks up the most sun? Like please soak up the experience, just like kind of having fun. And like, it was great because then like they would see me coming around like to the aid station and they'd start like cheering for me and stuff. So like if you can't get out of it, lean into it and like being negative about it at that moment wasn't going to change my situation. Actually, it could have changed it for the worse.
Right.
But when I crossed the finish line, the CEO was standing there and he like put his hands on my shoulder and was like, I am so proud of you. Like that was
Oh,
like, he meant it. And I didn't need someone to say that, but like the gesture and like the fact that he was there, because the men's race had already started at this point.
right.
And so he was still there waiting for me was just like so huge. So, mixed results. I didn't expect anything phenomenal. I really like in my head for whatever reason was like, I don't want to be last place.
Mhm.
But I think that for whatever reason, me getting last place was a good way to start because it's like, all right, it's up from here.
Yeah, you can only go up from here. There
Yeah.
you
And
go.
there's nothing like really, there's nothing wrong with being last place. Like
I
I
mean,
was out,
still competing in the pro field.
yeah, and I so had a reason to drop out. Like I could have totally been like,
Right.
yeah, worth the blisters, like because I mean I couldn't run for a few days after that. So,
Oof.
anyways, pro debut.
Yeah. Hey, it doesn't always go quite as planned, but I think that one thing that you've got that really stands out is that mentality. Yeah, I've been lucky enough to not have to do that and not have that mentality in too many races. But a few years ago when I did Ironman Texas, going like swim was fine, bike was fine, lost nutrition and stuff in the last 30 miles. So like going into the run, I knew it was going to be rough. And I
Uh-huh.
ended up getting like double leg cramps. And
Oh,
like I basically ended up having to walk or like jog walk most of that run. And very different than being in like the pro field and having to do that. But when you still get that same support, especially from the volunteers, the spectators, and when you're just not having your day, but being able to like kind of double down and be like, you know what, screw it, like not having my day, but I'm still going to make the best of the situation. I
yeah.
think that's a really great attitude. And honestly, like you said too, like it can just having that attitude change can make your race better. Like if you don't give into the like the pulling down, like I think that can really help out. Um,
Absolutely.
so I would love to jump into some of the more like technical side of the race too, as far as starting the swim and kind of trying to, like you said, going through transition, trying to keep up with the pack in front of you on the bike. How was it compared to racing in like the age group field? Whether it's mentality, strategy, how did you approach that for the race?
Yeah. So I guess it kind of depends. If we're talking like more of a local, like shorter triathlon, usually when I come out of the water, I'm near the front.
Right.
Now because a lot of races are sort of self-seed time trial start, and so I like to start as close to the front as I can get.
Yep.
Um,
Front
so
line, baby, front line.
yeah, front line. So normally, yeah, it really is just like get onto the bike and it's just me. At
Mhm.
least on drafting race. And then I'm trying to think, like for long course races, so I've done up the 70.3 distance
Okay.
um, with Ironman primarily. So that is more you seed yourself based on time again, but because of just like the sheer number of people,
Yeah.
um, I am usually not the first female out of the water, but it's still kind of like empty enough to where I can just go and focus on my bike. But this Clash Miami being a slightly shorter race and obviously a much smaller field where I
Hmm.
was somewhere, I think I came out like in the middle, like pack-ish. I think I was like 10th or 11th coming out of the water,
Okay.
um, out of like 17 or 18 or something like that. So not, I mean, better, honestly, better than I expected. But yeah, with a shorter race, and a shorter course where we were doing loops. Like if you've seen any of these like PTO races, you can form like the legal kind of line where you can
Yeah.
see you've got someone behind you.
Yeah.
And I was
Not
hoping,
technically a draft, but like a mental draft. I think a
yeah,
mental draft is a good term for it.
yeah, I like the slightest benefit, but like from being behind, but even at the legal distance for sure. And I'm like really big on not drafting in races. Like,
Yes.
it,
Yeah.
I mean, I was yelling at people this past weekend at White Lake, but
White
which is
Lake was there was a few sketches.
yeah,
We'll go into White Lake too, just because
yeah,
it was a fun course. But yeah,
yeah,
we'll talk about that in a little bit.
yeah. But honestly, like I don't even think like that was kind of what I was envisioning was getting into a legal group like that. but with the nature of the course, like you could get
Hmm.
into it, but then there were like turns and stuff. So that kind of breaks up groups as well.
Yeah.
But no, people were not drafting in that race. So yeah, I think normally in past races, I'm on my own with the bike.
Yep.
Um, Usually people are catching
Even in
me.
like the Ironman races.
Yeah, yeah. And it, normally like women are coming from behind and catching me. I'm not saying I'm like the first out of the water, but
Right.
really, I've not really had a lot of experiences in non-drafting races where I'm with a group of people or a few people, kind of like working together in a legal way.
Okay.
So yeah, I've done that in drafting races, of course, but yeah, that's something that I just really haven't had a lot of experience with for whatever reason.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. Well, there's so many things that I want to jump in and talk with you about. Is there anything else about your first race that you want to share? Because I mean, it's a big deal to like whether or not it went as expected. Your first pro race is a big deal, and I want to make sure that we get to cover whatever else that you want to talk about for that race.
Yeah, I think the biggest question mark I had going into it, was how am I going to feel about racing and this kind of experience, pretty much knowing I'm not going to be on the podium. Like
Hmm.
I, like I don't want to like you want to be like there's always a chance, but like
Right.
pretty zero chance that I'm going to be on the
Yeah, I
podium.
think
I'm like,
when you get to that pro field and
yeah,
when you know your competition, um,
right.
you kind of have a good idea of where you're at.
Yeah, it's like barring some catastrophe. Which honestly was a very new like mentality for me because pretty much since like after the first triathlon I ever did, I was like, oh, I can be on the podium in some way.
Yeah.
Like at first it was age group, but then it was like after that it's like, oh, I can be on the podium. And I'm very competitive with myself and with other people. And so I honestly was like, am I going to enjoy this the same if I'm
Hmm.
not in contention for a win or for a podium? And I mean, yeah, actually coming out of it, even more than like focusing on my result within the race, I was like looking back and seeing how I've progressed over the years and what I need to do to like make that next jump for me. And so, I mean, obviously, I was glad that I still had a good time because I
Right.
love this. Like, I really hope that this doesn't change things for me, but
Yeah.
maybe, no. So yeah, that was really the biggest thing was like not confused, but like curious about going into it was just how that experience would be. But it's really good. I'm not someone that wants to be comfortable and stagnant and
Yep. I
like
understand that.
getting better. This is probably the biggest like kick in the butt I could do is like make the jump to a new category.
Right.
Because I going back and forth at the end of last year if I wanted to accept my pro card because I accepted it or I got it in March, but I still wanted to do age group nationals and 70.3 worlds for age group.
Yep.
But I got the stress fracture and I didn't know this, but I raced age group nationals with the stress fracture, but I hadn't been running leading into. I'd only been running on the lever with like as much weight of my body I could take off as possible.
Right.
Um, so I raced that with a stress fracture, and I did like fine, but not like I could have. And then I couldn't run for worlds, and I hadn't been training, so I just like did the swim and the bike. But I really felt like I had unfinished business because I really wanted to like blow those out of the water.
Hmm.
And like
So you
coast.
still went to Worlds. You just only did the swim and the bike there.
Yeah, and I did like I run
Okay.
walked like a mile, and I was like considering walking the rest of it. Like I think I could have run walked a few miles without putting myself at risk.
Yeah.
And then I'm considering walking it because I think they're just like out of respect for the sport, but it's not like it was rude of me to stop because like I have an injury. But
Yeah.
I got to the first aid station and it was like going through downtown and
Hmm.
all the lunch, like all the restaurant spots were cooking lunch. And I was like, I am not gonna make my people wait around for like who knows how many hours while I walk this. Like, and so I told them I was like gonna drop out, like the people at the aid station, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? Like, what do you need? Like, let us
Yeah.
help you." I was like, "Listen, I'm fine." Like, because they were like worried about me emotionally. But
Yeah.
I was like, "Listen, I'm."
That's good. It's good
Anyways,
to know that the volunteers and the spectators care, right?
yeah, for sure. So yeah, I was like, anyways, I was really considering not taking my pro card so I could go back this year and have those races that I wanted. but ultimately I was feeling ready for the next challenge, and
Yeah.
I feel confirmed that for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's a good reason, you know, wanting that challenge and to step up. Plus,
Mhm.
to go to Worlds for it, it's like it's a hard travel to make. I would
And
have
that's
loved to go, but I don't. I was wanting to go, but I don't think I'm actually be able to get a 70.3 race in before Worlds happens because it's in like late August this year.
yeah.
I don't even think I can get a race in to qualify this year because I technically qualified at Augusta last year, but because I was trying to get my pro card as well, I still am. I decided not to take it because I'm like, oh, by that point, I'm hopefully going to have it, and then I won't be able to compete there as an age group athlete anyway. So I didn't take it, and now I'm like, oh, I might not be able to get a race in before that.
Oh man.
But I don't know if I would have been able to make the trip this year, anyways.
Yeah, it's definitely harder to travel this year just because of its location and more
Yeah.
expensive. Good point too. That would have been annoying.
Cool. Well, I want to take the chance here to go into your qualifying races then. So you qualified, it sounds like you qualified a couple different times here.
No,
Oh, no?
no.
Okay.
So I was really close to doing like the points method where I can't remember if it's like 2 or 3 races where you get a certain number of points based on
It
like
used
how
to be 3. I think now it's 2. I could be wrong. It might have always been 2. But yeah, I know a few people who have qualified that way.
yeah. I think it is 2, and then I think it's 3 if you win the amateur field at like a 70.3 or full that has like a certain number of a certain amount of money in the prize purse, and it's like
Yep.
2 or 1 if it has more money or something like that. But I was going for the long course route, or the points route basically, because the way I got it was through the draft legal like EDR, which is elite development race, or now it's NTDR, which is like national triathlon development race. And yeah, so I am not a very strong swimmer in terms of the draft legal scene.
Okay.
And so I've just been doing that race for a really long time, and I really love it. It's in Claremont, Florida. But I ended up, my friend she was there racing the pro race, and she hopped in on the NTDR that I was doing. There's 2 days of races. I did it on the first day. I got 8th place. I've gotten 8th place at that race. Like, so it's so ridiculous, like how many times I've gotten 8th place. Whether I came off like further back from the swim, or like one time I got early, but my run fitness wasn't there. So I like fell back places during the run. But anyways, she led our bike pack like full charge because she just wanted to do the bike. So she did like full
Oh
charge on
gosh.
we ended up getting close to the front pack, and then on the last lap at the turnaround, I like made a surge and bridged myself up to the lead group, and there was probably like, by the end of the lap, there was probably like 10 of us in that group, and started the run, and about like 800 meters into the run, I found myself like in third place.
Oh
And
wow.
like, oh my gosh. And then I was like, I have to stay here because I was kind
Yeah.
of I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I didn't my run fitness was really good. Like, I'd really been training hard. And so I was like, holy crap. And it was so crazy to me because immediately it's like, I'm in third place. I'm exactly where I need to be because top 3
Yep.
amateur their pro card at those races. Immediately my brain was like, oh, you should quit. You can use this excuse, or like, you don't want to do this, or you can't do like cycling through. And it was just like, every time one came, I was like, bam, like I had to like hit it away. But all I could do was I just focused on the next cone in front of me. And like, these cones are like 3 meters apart, like they're super close,
Yep.
but I cone. And it's a 2-lap run. And I was just like, if I quit, what am I going to tell all these people here cheering for me? Like, it was just such a mind game. And I could not believe that the mind games were still happening, even when I was where I needed to be. Like,
Yep.
because it's so, the mind games come when you're like not where you need to be.
Right.
Too, obviously. But so yeah, that was it. I ended up getting third, but I think there was one
That did it.
there was one non-American ahead of me, so she didn't count anyways.
Oh,
And
okay. Interesting.
but I was like, so part of me was like, okay, even if I lose this spot, I can still get it. But I was like, I would not bank on that. So I
Yeah.
was like, gosh, maybe she's just wearing a random kit that she found. So yeah, I like really fought to hold that third place and like was so excited when I crossed the finish line, like pretty much panic attack because like my body was like, I don't, these emotions are too much, like, and your body can't always like tell what the emotions are. And so I
Right.
was like having trouble breathing and I was like crying, like it was just so dramatic, like so dramatic. But
Oh no.
uh, that was like like my 6th year doing that race. And I'd been wanting to be a pro for 6 years. So it was like a really huge moment and it just was extra special doing it there because
Yep.
there were people that would be like, why are you doing these races? Like, you're not a good swimmer. Like, you need to be doing these long course races.
Screw what they
But I,
say. Do you do you. You do your
yeah,
race.
but I kept like falling apart on the run for the long course races. So that's why I kept doing the NTDRs because I was like, well, maybe I'll have a good swim and, be able to back it up with my run. Because that had happened in the past, like I said, where I'd get off in a really good spot in the swim, but then lose it on the run. So it was a really sweet moment.
That's awesome. And yeah, I think that's super fitting for having doing that race so many years and to finally get your pro card
Yeah.
at it. There was something that you mentioned that actually at White Lake, I had a small conversation with someone that it was their first try. And they mentioned something about like, oh, I'm worried I won't be able to finish or that I'm going to disappoint the people that are out here cheering. And coaching moment for anyone who is watching this, listening to this, is just like the people that are out there at the races are there for you. You're not there for them, right? Like, and I know that, like you said, when you're in the middle of the race, like sometimes those mind games start playing with you. So just like a moment for anyone that's listening is that no matter where you are, whether or not you finish, like the people who are there to support you are there for you. You're not there for them. It does not matter if you drop out halfway through, if you win the whole race, it does not matter your time. Like one, they're watching you, so like you're already doing more than them, so they're probably already impressed, right? And then again, like they're there to support you, not the other way around. But I've definitely heard that, and I've gone through it before too, like in some of my harder races where halfway through, like you said, you're just like your mind starts playing games. You're like, man, this sucks. Like, I'm gonna disappoint the people that came out here, and like, yeah, it's just it is hard to get through though.
Yeah, sure. And it just really, that winter specifically, I'd really been working on what my internal like monologues are or dialogues, like talking between myself, like
Yeah,
that
a few
Erin over.
different voices in the head. We
Yeah,
all have a couple of them. I think.
at least a couple. But yeah, so it was just like it just so strongly speaks to our mind being a tool. We can either have our mind be a tool that helps us or it can 100% be something that pulls us back, and it's almost never just neutral. And so if
Right.
we're not really working to sharpen that tool, it can and will be used against us. And so every day that we train, we get an opportunity to also train our mind. And it's always something that can be strength.
Yeah, 100%. And just tying that back to what you said before, with leaning in when if you're not feeling good, or if you're down, just kind of leaning into it and being like, you know what, ease up on yourself mentally, and then honestly, your body's probably going to react in a positive way. Like the with how everything's connected, it's crazy. Like I've been in races where I was down on myself, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to ease up. Your body relaxes, and then you get to run, bike, swim so much more smoothly, and like you just end up feeling better and actually going faster most of the time.
Sure. Yep. 100%.
Yeah. So cool. I want to transition a little bit into draft legal races because that's something that's out of my territory. I know a lot of people, it probably is out of theirs as well. Kind of give some of the background, like, what's the difference in racing for draft legal versus, I guess independent or like Ironman Clash, where you're not allowed to draft. Yeah, can you give us like just like a little bit of detail and like the race dynamics on some of that?
Yeah. So draft legal is quite like it sounds. We're drafting. You are not allowed to have a time trial bike, so you're only racing on road bikes. you might see some road bikes that have little extensions on them, because like, let's say you're off on your own and the draft legal, like sometimes someone will come out really fast in the swim and they're on their own for a while and you can kind of time trial it. But your extensions aren't allowed to go past your hoods.
Okay.
So they're are. So they're changing that rule. I think that they're not even allowed anymore. Anyways, with the draft legal style racing, because groups can form on the bike, the emphasis becomes a lot stronger on the swim and the run. And so where you come out on the swim is going to most of the time determine who you end up with on the bike. Unless you want to like hammer it and try to bridge up to a group, which I've done in the past because like I knew I was coming from behind. And then you form packs. And the cool thing about that is, like, let's say we have someone that's 30 seconds ahead by themselves and then a pack of three cyclists. They're rotating in a perfect world and communicating and working together because it's advantageous for them to go up and catch that person. And so most pack is going to move faster than one person by themselves. And so these drafting dynamics really start to play a role. It can really help someone who's not a good cyclist because they get in a pack with some strong cyclists. It can also be a hindrance to a strong cyclist because, and I tried this so many times where I'm in a pack with cyclists that are not as strong as me. And we could be going faster, but we're not organized because they don't understand the dynamics, or they're just not like as strong as me.
So whenever they take the lead there, it just slows everyone down a little bit, I'm assuming, or
or they don't, and they're just sucking on your wheel.
Yeah, and that's not fun.
Off and like get away, but they, even unorganized and not as strong, like they can still catch me. And so it can be a plus or a minus for people with the drafting. And then you get off the bike, and then the emphasis again, biking is important, obviously. And, you want to be able to do quick, punchy maneuvers on the bike. And that's kind of where the biking fitness changes. So instead of just like a solid effort the entire time, like you would in a long course or non-draft race, you are having bursts of high intensity and then segments of resting where you're drafting and you don't have to work as. And so it's a totally different energy system and like requirement. And then you get off the bike, and then it's every man for himself, right?
Right.
And so important. So it just looks a lot different. You get a lot of people that are recruited from swimming programs or track programs if they have a background. Because a lot of times, like, people will say like you can just like plop someone on the bike, and if they can swim well, they'll probably fare. And if they can swim and run, they'll probably do okay on the bike. I've seen that go really poorly though, because I think sometimes draft legal might get the like reputation that the bike doesn't matter. But there, like I mentioned before, there's pack dynamics. There's a lot of bike handling. There's often a draft legal.
A lot more bike handling and a lot more area for things to go wrong.
Exactly. And it's not just you that's at risk. Like, you crash in a pack and you're probably taking out other people, right? And so draft legal courses are normally several like small, more technical loops, and that adds to the bike handling demands. Hairpin turns, you're making lots of turns, you're changing speed, there's hills, all those kind of things. So I've seen a lot of people underestimate the requirements for the bike and think that because they're good swimmers, like the rest of it will be easy. And so if anyone's considering doing draft legal, do not neglect the bike handling and technique aspect of biking, and definitely get practice group riding, because ideally in a draft race, you're not biking alone.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully not. Otherwise, you're doing a whole lot extra work. And that was going to be the next question, is if anyone is interested in draft legal, what the best way to do it is. And I would assume just riding in groups. And it is pretty incredible just how much being in a draft, like being behind someone's wheel can make a difference. Like it's a little absurd sometimes when you actually break it down.
Yeah, it takes a ton of energy. So yeah, I mean, start by practicing with riding, like with friends in a kind of low stakes situation. Do not draft in your aero bars on your time trial bike, because you can't break from your aero bars. Very, very dangerous. And also generally show up to like a group cycling ride that's maybe more heavily focused on drafting and stuff like that in your time trial bike. But yeah, you can hop on a road bike, or you can practice with friends in your like pursuit bars on your time trial bike. And the biggest thing is just like you have to remember that all of your actions will affect the pack around you. And so like if you just brake randomly really hard, that means the person behind you is probably going to hit you.
Especially if their wheel, you know, some people ride like friggin' 2 inches off your wheel.
Well, that's like, I mean, because there's a huge difference in being this close to a wheel and being a foot back. Like you can get dropped if you're a foot back. So
yeah, it's insane.
yeah, so I mean, it's super fun. I absolutely love it. I have been working on my swim because like I still am not totally sure what direction I'm going to go with my race focus.
Okay.
So
you mean like versus short course versus long course? Okay. Where are you leaning towards right now with that?
I am leaning towards like more short course because one, I still feel I can get more of myself out of myself with my swim.
Okay.
And then on top of that, last year I was still seeing like pretty great improvements in my run fitness.
Okay.
And I want to maximize like how fast I can get on the run in the shorter stuff because that only sets you that run better long course in years to come.
Right.
As you get older, it gets harder to bring that speed down on the run for shorter things. So it's not impossible, it's just harder.
Yeah.
And so I have the time right now to be swimming a lot and to be working on those things. So there's that component of it that is making me lean towards that. The part that makes me then maybe push back to long course is that it is just really hard to find races to do, like draft legal races. There's not that many in the country. So it's it requires a lot of travel, a lot, and it's not quite the same. Like, yeah, it's just a whole different environment. So like, I mean, I don't have any sponsors anyways, but like you don't see sponsors as much. Not yet. Yeah. If anyone's looking to sponsor someone that's super like, I don't know, crazy.
That's got super good energy, good vibes already as a coach. There's a opportunity right here for someone.
Yeah. Can talk. But anyways, it's just a lot, it's just different. So you're dealing with federations and like, does your country want to bring you to races? But I wouldn't even be that good for, if ever, a long time. So whereas with long course races, there's a little bit more opportunity to get money out of them.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, especially with rising like PTO and Clash and some of the Ironman competitors, which because you've gotten to do a few different races, that's another topic that I want to jump into in a little bit. Also, fingers crossed that internet stays stable now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. Again, fingers crossed, but let's jump into some more of the background.
Yeah.
Like I said, we got to talk about the qualifying race, your pro debut. And so, yeah, let's talk about like how you got into triathlon.
Yeah. So basically started out as a swimmer. I did summer swim team growing up, like from the time I was little. I always wanted to do club because I thought it sounded so cool, but like we just couldn't afford it. And so I just did summer swim team, but I was really dedicated. I trained a lot for a summer swim athlete. I did like karate growing up. And then my freshman year of college, I tried out for the swim team and I made junior varsity, which I mean, like I don't even think we were allowed to race that. Like, I don't even think I got to race. Maybe I got to race like one time. But I was just like happy to be on a team and to be like training with people because it was like way more serious than I'd ever swam before. But I started running because I was like so serious about getting more fit. I was like, running sounds good. So then I fell in love with running. And so I started with spring track my freshman year. And then cross country going into my sophomore year. And that's where I like really fell in love with running and got really competitive. And so like, basically I would just like hang on to the fastest girls on the team, like for as long as I could, which is not a great way to train when you are a developing female. And so I got injured pretty quickly. I had like,
It's a common issue, especially in running.
Yes, for sure. It shouldn't be. And I'm like, that's something I'm really passionate about now too. And like, I get to leverage as a coach, like my bad experiences with that. But, I got like a stress fracture in my shin and I like sprained my arch in my other foot. And the guy was like, oh, you should really be in 2 boots, but that would be ridiculous. And I was like, glad this is funny to you. But basically after that,
Cool.
yeah, I did like swim team again the next year, but was like the literal slowest person on the team. They just put me on the team because like I remember the coach was like, "Hey, we're gonna have a lot of drama on the team this year, and so like I want you on the team as like a peacemaker." And so I was like, "That's fine if that's what gets me onto the team." Like, okay, like I just wanted to be working out, and I
Uh-huh.
raced. I got to race a few times that year too, which I actually more than a few. I got to race that year, but I was like super slow. Um, and I basically got injured like every year of running. So I would do spring track, I'd get injured. I'd do swim team, and then I'd do cross country, I'd get injured. Um,
It sounds
or
like
I
a
guess it was
familiar
cross country.
story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But anyway, the order, whatever the order was. But I wanted to run in college, like, because I just loved it. It's just one of those things where it's like I loved it so. All I wanted to do was be running, and I kept
Hmm.
getting injured. All these stress fractures. So my senior year, I was trying to have a really good like cross country season, so I could try to walk on to a college team. And I ended up. It's a long story, but through a series of misdiagnoses, I fractured the neck of my femur almost all the way through, because they kept telling me it was other stuff. And then I should have been on crutches. I was walking, I tripped, and it fractured. And then for 3 weeks, they still didn't catch it. And so ultimately, I couldn't walk anymore. So I went to the doctor,
Oh my
and they were like,
God.
"Oh my gosh, you need surgery. Like, you're getting surgery next week, like all these things." So I've got like 2 huge screws through the neck of my femur and some pins in the like shaft of my femur. Um,
Oh
and
my
so the
gosh.
doctor was like, "You should not run anymore." And I was like, "This is like obviously not just his fault," but I was like, "No, like
Should
this
not
shouldn't have
happen.
gotten this bad, right?" Um,
Yeah.
so somebody told me that there was this thing called the triathlon club at James Madison at JMU. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's perfect because I'm already biking and swimming a ton because I can't run all the time.
Hmm.
And now like those will have a purpose, or at least more of a purpose since it's
Right.
part of the race." And so I joined my freshman year. I did my first race, ironically, in Richmond. And I remember just like crying when I crossed the finish line because I was just so like overwhelmed with being able to run and finding something and like a team that was so amazing. And I just like absolutely fell in love with the sport. The team environment was just great. All the like upperclassmen were so good at taking new triathletes under their wings and getting them the gear they needed, and teaching. And like I remember the president of the tri club one year, like I remember where we were at JMU in the grass, and he was teaching me how to clip in, like, um and so just like it opened up a whole new world of adventure and ways to move my body and like help my body get stronger and care for it and all these things. And
Mhm.
so that that just kept this like positive cycle going. It influenced what I'm doing today for work, like, and basically it was probably, I don't know how many, whatever year it was, but we were in Claremont for our training camp. And I remember Sky Munch, and she was there with a couple people training, and she was like telling me that she was a pro triathlete. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, like I want to be a pro triathlete." And just like that little seed just kept growing and
Yeah.
growing and growing. And so, um, and then while I was in graduate school, that's when the NCAA programs were starting for college. And I was like really sad that I wasn't younger and couldn't like actually be an NCAA for triathlon. But
Yeah.
they let us race, they let some of the club athletes race in the charter races so they would have more people. And so
Cool.
I did get to race in some of these like NCAA like initial races. So that's kind of what got the bug for draft legal, was just going to Claremont and learning about the Claremont races and then getting to do some of them in college.
Very cool. Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, to emphasize your point, especially in triathlon, like one of the things I love them so much about the sport is the community. I mean,
Yeah.
every race you go to, like you feel welcomed at them. At least from my experience, like
Mhm.
whenever I'm at races, I try to help other people. Like at White Lake, for example, there was that swim start was super shallow for super far out. And so the night
Yeah.
before, I was doing some practice getting in because I thought we were gonna have to do it twice. um, and there was
Same.
some people that were like, they just looked super confused. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I have to run like all the way out there," and just like helping them out where I can, um, or just again, just people. The community really is like pretty fantastic. So I'm glad that you are in it. I'm glad that you had such a warm and welcome start to it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to share about your the background too, how you got into tri? I think that
Yeah, I think that that's it. Yeah, just, so grateful for the countless people that poured into me along the way. And because it's just like, I know for me, like, it's not worth it to me if there's not people I'm doing it alongside to some
yeah,
extent. And I think sport teaches us so much about, I mean, I think it does teach us so much about ourselves. And that's just so much more rich when you're doing it with people too. And you can help each other and encourage each other. So yeah, I'm just so grateful for the really vibrant team that JMU had at the time and the way it shaped me for sure.
awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm gonna use that to segment into sort of the last major topic here, which is the upcoming season. And then if we still got some time and you still got some energy to talk, some of those other things that we circled around to, would love to talk about, your coaching, some getting into like some tips, some advice for other people. But to start all that is with the upcoming season. What other races do you have planned? What goals do you have, and sort of the attitude about going into the rest of the year?
Yeah. So the next thing on the calendar is actually in about a month. So the friend that I went to Claremont with this past March, Amanda, dreamed up this like ultra-ish Ironman type situation where she wanted to do a really long day of triathlon and end kind of trail running near where she lives. She still lives in Harrisonburg, which is where JMU is. And so
Okay.
we met, actually, we didn't even meet in college. We just knew of each other because we were in the same program. And then through social media, just kind of got reconnected, or I guess connected for the first time, and just kind of one of those fast friendships. We share a lot of passions. And so she had this idea, and I was kind of thinking of doing something crazy anyways, because I wanted to like push myself in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And
but I'm
it's
not
fun to
really
be a
super
little crazy
interested.
every now and then.
What'd you say?
And it's fun to be a little crazy out every
Yeah,
now
of
and
course.
then.
Yeah. I'm trying not to take myself too seriously. So this was kind
Mhm.
of like an effort to fight that. But I didn't really want to do like a road Ironman, like a classic, like full distance on the road. So she came up with this idea and I hopped in on it, and we are going to start in Richmond and swim. I don't really know how much yet, but probably at least the Ironman distance, maybe a little more. We're going to bike from Richmond to like the Afton, Charlottesville area. It's going to end up being like 120 miles with the route we take. And
Okay.
then we're going to run a little over a marathon on the Appalachian Trail. So
Oh, cool.
we'll already be up. So it's like, hopefully not too much. She says it's not too much elevation change. So
Yeah,
that is just,
trail running on the AT that's another ball game. That's
yeah. So
tough.
I've been doing a lot of trail running to prep, but we, yeah, I'm super excited. It's gonna be us. We really wanted to, with this like project that we're doing, show people that you can create a challenge for yourself and push yourself in new ways without the like confinement of a race.
Mhm.
Um,
I love
it
it.
opens up so many doors, and we're really leaning into, like, each of us are leaning into our areas of, I don't want to say weakness, but like areas that we could get stronger, which I guess implies weakness, but her
It
big
doesn't
like,
have to.
yeah, it's just, it could be stronger. So
Yeah.
like her area that she wanted to focus on is really like building her bike fitness. She does a lot of mountain biking and like gravel riding and stuff, because that's like, it's just like a playground for it in Harrisonburg and around it.
Mhm.
For me, I really wanted to work on my durability and running without getting injured. And this felt really scary for me initially because I'm coming off a femoral stress fracture, which is like the biggest scary no stress fracture. So, and
Right.
especially me with my history, I'm like so hyper aware of any bone type feeling injury. So I really wanted to explore my limits and also like how I can build myself up. And so removing the pressure of a race has allowed me to like focus on that with clarity and
Mhm.
give myself space to recover when I need it or push myself when I feel ready.
Right.
So we're doing that, and then I'll recover from that. I don't know how long it will take. based on my training, I think that my body really, really likes trail running and can handle it well. And so I'm hoping it doesn't take too much out of me for too long, but gonna give my body the time it needs to recover, and then kind of decide what the rest of the season looks like. The only thing I have like official is I'm doing Challenge Barcelona in October with my friend. And that's like kind of like the Clash Miami distance, sort of that middle distance, but not quite a full half Ironman. So yeah, I kind of got to like map out what short course options there are. There's endless long course options, you know.
Right.
So yeah, I honestly, like, I don't know.
Don't know yet.
Which is weird because I've told people like my entire life as an amateur triathlete, like I always had my race schedule figured out. You know, from the first race of the season to the last one, with my coach, and we had a plan. And now it's just kind of like, I don't know. But I guess within that, I really want to, ridiculous. I want to get faster in my swimming, biking, and running. But more specifically, I'm really working on the speed I can hold, I guess at any distance, but with over the half distance. Been working on kind of fine tuning my aerodynamics on the bike, because I think there were a few like big aero penalties that I had on my bike, that I've made big dent in with the help of some other people, but we have some more room to improve that. And really just like getting strong, because I'm little. I'm really good on hills and hilly courses, but when we get to these flatter courses, I just lack the raw power.
Right.
And so really focus on weightlifting, and just really, I'm really increasing my bike volume more than I ever have. And then fine tuning my swim and like trying to level up there. And then beyond that, just really building durability with the run. And I'm viewing this season more of it as an investment in my run, and not where I'll see a lot of that improvement yet. And I'm okay with that, because consistency is always king. And if I can get through a season without being injured, that's way better than like getting down to my 5K time from last year, because that resulted in injury. So I need to change what I did from last year so I don't get hurt again. Because that was the first stress fracture I'd had in like 5 years, which was just like absolutely phenomenal for me, like that streak of no stress fractures. So trying to get back on that streak again.
Yeah. So on that topic, what are you doing for that, you know, to prevent getting injured? You know, whether it's adding the strength training in, you know, but doubling down on all of that, like what are you doing to prevent injuries, and what advice can you give to other athletes to help them also not get injured and to avoid overtraining?
Yeah. So I guess first explaining why I think I got the injury is a good place to start. It's always a combination of things, but I think the combination was I leveled up my training, specifically my run training. I was running more volume than ever and more intensity than ever. And I did not change my recovery habits, primarily the amount of sleep I was getting. I am a yes woman. I say yes to everything. I am a people pleaser, so I don't want to let people down. And that's not like, sometimes I feel like that has a negative connotation. I want to help people. Like, I don't want people to be inconvenienced. Like I follow through on my commitments. Like, so anyways, just not changing my sleep schedule.
Good traits to have.
Yeah, I guess, until they wear you down into the ground. And so boundaries are important too. And I'm learning that. So increased training volume, increased training load, no change in sleep habits. And I'm talking like 7 or less hours of sleep every night. And I also
7 hours? Lucky duck.
Yeah, well, not every night. And then I also was playing ultimate frisbee on my rest days, and I was like clocking like 5 miles of ultimate frisbee running, like not did a jog and played some like that was all ultimate frisbee.
That's not recovery.
And it was a blast, and I actually think that it was contributing to my run fitness, because I was training my muscles in a way that you just don't when you're running, like for endurance, or even sprinting, you know, because we're pivoting and stuff. But I was wearing cleats, and we were playing through the winter. And I actually think the impact of the cleats on the harder ground, I did like I was like looking through I was like scouring Google for reasons I got this type of stress fracture, because it's kind of a rare area. And I found one case study, which again, it's not super powerful, but it was powerful enough for me, where field hockey players, like within a year, like 8 girls on this team got femoral stress fractures.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing they could find that might have been like similar throughout most of them was it was around the time they transitioned from playing indoors to playing outdoors in the early spring when the ground was hard and they were in cleats. Yeah. So this year, I've not returned to Frisbee yet. I really want to, because it is like just pure joy for me. I have like just running around like a crazy person. It's so fun. I love the people I play with. But so I would like to, but I have really made some intentional changes to my schedule. And this is where like my work schedule becomes a really huge asset to me, because it's variable and it's flexible. A lot of my work ends up being on the computer because I'm creating and managing athlete plans and their progressions. So I've made some intentional changes to my schedule so that I can allow myself to sleep more. I participate with a master's group that does have 6 a.m. practices every day, but Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they have an 8:30 a.m. practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so on nights where I know I'm not going to get enough sleep, I sleep in and go to that one. So that has really helped. And also just being in the swim group, but giving myself that flexibility to sleep in has been huge. And then I think trail running is really helping me because it slows me down a little bit and it's soft surface.
Mm-hmm.
We've got a good mix of technical trails and more like gravelly dirt, like not as technical trails, pretty close, like within 20 to 30 minutes for me. And not doing intensity for this period of time has, I think, been critical. So just being really patient and again, trusting that if I can build consistency, that's going to be way more powerful than rushing back to speed work and seeing short-term gains at the cost of getting injured.
Yeah,
so
I think that right there, what you just said is huge right there. The focusing on the long-term plan and not the short-term gains, and being able to take a step back to get recovery, to take your easy days, and not push yourself to the point of overtraining and injury.
Yeah, and it takes things like laying down the ego of wanting to look fast on Strava, or and like letting my pace go down on trail runs when I have to walk, not pausing and it seems so little, but just like letting go of those standards that I'm holding myself to that don't matter. Like it doesn't matter what my easy pace run is if it keeps me from racing. Like, and what I care, I mean, obviously, like I enjoy the process and I want to be healthy and I want to get stronger. But you see consistently these elite runners that are running their long runs at like 2 minutes slower than their race pace. And it's like, I heard like Kipchoge runs at like 8:30 pace, and maybe that's not true, but I wouldn't be surprised. And it's like, all right, I can't even run. Yeah, it's like I can't even run 400 meters at his marathon race pace, and if he's running 8:30 pace, I have no business doing my easy runs at that pace. So like,
can you say that one more time for everyone listening right there? Just repeat that one more time for us.
Yeah. So I heard, and even if it's, I think it's true. I do believe it. He runs his easy runs at 8:30 pace. And like, if I can't even run 400 meters at his marathon race pace, I was just like, I have no business pushing myself if I feel tired, if it's not a hard workout, why am I like pushing myself to hit some arbitrary, like, oh, it's only a good easy run if I run 7:30 pace or faster. It's like, just these like ruts I've gotten stuck into over the years. So just laying down that ego. And I thought about deleting Strava for a while, but honestly, I think it's cool if people can see, like, there's just another thing. It's like, oh wow, like Erin runs this pace at races, but her easy run is 9:30 pace. Like maybe I can go easier today, so just kind of having it out there so people can see that, because we have no shortage of people that puff themselves up on social media to like look good all the time.
Instagram,
and so,
Strava, all of those. It's honestly can be really toxic. And I at least, being a coach, being an athlete, trying to get sponsors, doing all that, like, unfortunately, you have to have a social media presence to do all of that. But, I try to keep it as genuine as I can. Good days, bad days, fast days, recovery days, all of that stuff. Like, it all paints a picture. It's all part of the same plan. Like if you want to have hard days, you have to have easy days. And
Yeah.
again, one of the fastest people in the entire world who does marathons at like 4:30 pace, absurd, is doing easy runs at 8:30. Like
Yeah.
to reiterate,
Have you heard that? Like, have you
yeah.
heard that
Oh yeah,
number?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
No,
yeah, yeah.
a lot of elite runners, and triathletes as well. Granted, they're doing a lot more load, so like they, but at the same time, like yeah, you have to take your recovery days as true recovery, and I don't think a lot of people do that.
Yeah.
It's harder if you're only getting 3 or 4 runs in a week versus they're doing over 100 miles a week, so they have a lot
Yeah.
more of those slow miles in there. But
Right.
finding that balance, and
Phew.
if you have to get rid of Strava or don't track a run to keep yourself slower, I would probably say go for it. Like it's nice having the metrics to look at, but if you know that uploading that run is going to push you past your recovery pace, don't track it.
Yeah.
Don't track
Well,
it, right?
yeah. And this is something that I learned in grad school. So you can trust me because I'm an expert. But
She's smart. She's got smarticles. She went to school for it.
yeah, but you get stronger in your recovery. Like, obviously you need the hard work to recover from, but recovery is where your muscles literally rebuild themselves. And when they rebuild themselves, they make themselves just that much stronger. And if you are not giving your body the time and the space to recover, you are working against your ability to get faster. Yeah. And so there is no glory in pushing the easy days because that's just completely counterintuitive. And
Yep.
As a coach, that's what I have to harp on the most is people going easier, not harder.
Yep. I have to harp on it myself. I mean, that's one of the reasons, like even a lot of pros or a lot of coaches have coaches. It's not to help them on the hard days, but to make them keep easy days easy. At least for me,
Yep.
it was like,
yeah,
I've had a hard time doing just going out and doing, an easy bike ride and keeping the wattage low and keeping everything just like very chill, because you get out there and you're like, oh, I feel good. I should just go for it. It's like, no, keep it easy. Whatever you
Yeah.
can. Put on a podcast that makes you go easy, ride with friends, like whatever it is, taking those easy days easy.
Yeah. I mean, you can do things like put your watch in your pocket. During White Lake, I only had my heart rate showing on the run. Now granted, I wasn't trying to go easy on that day, but like, I think there is value to not looking at the data. If you want to record it, that's fine, for tracking purposes. But like,
Right.
I think there's a lot of value of removing the numbers and just listening to your body and learning how to dial it in that way, whether you're trying to keep it easy or go hard. So
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I know we've kind of already moved through and moved past the like upcoming season. We've kind of just naturally moved out of that, which is totally okay. If there's anything in there that you want to talk about, we can. Otherwise, would love to hear how White Lake went for you. That was just last weekend. Super fun race. I personally loved it. And I want to talk about that. And I would also love to get your opinion on Clash, PTO, Ironman, because there's a lot of stuff going on in that field right now, as far as like how they treat athletes and the athlete experience. So let's start with White Lake though.
Yeah, so White Lake, I had been contemplating doing it for several weeks. Actually, initially after Clash Miami, I told my coach, I was like, I'm not doing White Lake. Like, I just need to put my head down and train. And so he's like, all right. So we took it off the schedule and put my head down and was training. And then, kind of like started craving a little bit of that kind of push, like the challenge that a race puts before you. And it turned out that the race was falling really perfectly into my training progression for the Cross Virginia thing me and Amanda are doing. And so I kind of started like scouting out lodging and was really fortunate to find some lodging with a few guys and their family that were going to be racing. So I I decided to sign up and I went for it. And really what I wanted to do was assess where my swim and my bike are, because I've been really focused in training on those. And then just have fun. Part of me trying to decide if I want to do long course or short course is like, obviously not every race is going to be like rainbows and butterflies and like the most peppy fun time ever, but like I do better when I'm enjoying myself and like
Yep.
am in great situations, and like that's just how I am. The more pressure I put on myself, generally the worse I do. And so I just wanted to see if this distance is something that I feel good about committing to for this year. And so I was holding the run open-handed. I felt pretty good because like I've been clocking some serious miles training for this like ultra-ish thing. And I've been trail running, which I know like in the past, like if I can do it consistently, like it really does make you strong. Like you can't always tell, but you're doing hills, you're,
I miss it.
going down steep hills, all the things. So I did the swim, as you alluded to. The course was a little funny. And I just wrote like this morning, I'm going to like make a little blog post about this, but was supposed to be 2 loops with an Aussie exit, where you hop out, run across back to the start, and then redo your swim. And we're going along, and I got dropped by, I started really well, got on some feet. Then we, made the first right-hand turn, and we're like going and we're going and we're going. And I'm like, dang, I can't even see the turn buoy yet. Like, where's the turn buoy? But I was like, all right, we're just gonna keep going. Like, that's fine. I get dropped by my group, and I was like, okay, that's fine. So then get caught by like the advanced males that started behind. Got onto their feet. Hung with them for a little bit. We finally make the freaking turn. And again, I'm like, where's the exit? Like, I can't even see it. Get dropped by those guys, get caught by a woman that started behind the advanced men. And I was like, okay, like I'm getting pretty tired. Like, I guess I'm not as like tapered as I thought I was. Like, and I didn't have a super taper, but I did take it easy that week leading into it. And so she dropped me, and I was like, oh boy, like this is going to be a long second lap. Like, I was like, I guess my swim's not where I thought it was. Like, that's fine. I'll just have to do more work on endurance. Cause like we've been doing a lot of more short speed at Masters, which is totally great. And I need that because I need to get my base speed faster. Right. But I was like, guess I need to start going to the endless pool and doing some sustained efforts. And then I hear the guy yelling at the girl because she dropped me. So she got a little bit ahead. And I hear him yelling at her, you're done, go onto your bike. And I was like, did she lap me? I was like, what in the, like,
I was confused coming out because I think
I was like,
like, did you not have beeps going off on like, so I have my watch set up to give me a notification every 200. So like I noticed it when I hit around 1,000 before the turn buoy, and I was like, well, maybe we're gonna turn and it'll be like right there because it was kind of hard to see the sun. And I was like, this is either gonna be really short if they cut it, or it's gonna be really long.
No, I don't have beeps or auto lap on or anything, just so I can kind of like be focused on the surrounding. That would like totally distract me, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
So then I got out just like a few, however far behind her, and they're like, 1 lap, you're done. Go to the bike. And I was like, what? Isn't it 2 laps? And they're like, 1 lap, go to the bike, you're done. I was like, so I don't need to do a second lap. Like, I couldn't even like comprehend. And he's like, we measured it wrong. Go to the bike. And I was like, okay. And so I like went to the bike, and I was like, oh wow, like, okay. And I like looked at my time, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I was pretty happy with that time. So I was like, that's so funny. Just like the perspective, like I thought it was going bad, and then one piece of external information completely changed the narrative. Right. So I got on the bike. My goal was to try and hold like a higher power than I have before in the half, because I wanted to see what I could like wring out of myself. I had a pretty solid first leg. I was starting to get some like soreness in my adductors, which is, I don't know why that keeps happening on these long bikes and races, and only races. And I think it might be from like kicking in my wetsuit or something. I don't know. But then I got overtaken by a pack of athletes drafting, which really infuriates me. And I let them know it infuriated me. and I like yelled at them and I like made a surge and passed them. And then they of course caught me again because they're drafting.
You
And
go
then they
back and
passed
forth a
me and
few
I was like,
times.
oh, I was pissed. Why do you sign up for non-draft races if you're going to cheat? It is blatant cheating, even if you're not getting caught by a ref. I just like can't. I will yell about this every single time. So, anyways,
No, I'm
I
on the
was
same
pissed.
page with you there. Same page.
Yeah, so I was so mad, and that brought my watt average up quite a bit on the second half. So I did a great bike split for me.
There you go.
Yeah, so that was good. I got off the bike and I followed my heart rate like guide that my coach and I talked about before. And on the second lap, caught up with this guy. And we just like chatted the whole, like almost the whole rest of the like second 6 miles. And I gained a few spots actually on the run and PR'd for the distance, which blew my mind because haven't been doing speed work on the run. And my previous PR was from 2017 at Wilmington, which is a push like current on the swim. So I just was so excited. And then the other huge, so that was great. The other huge thing, and this is even bigger, honestly, than PRing for me because it's going to lead to, or I think it's going to lead to even more success, just like personally, not like fame, but just like improvement. I, ever since that 70.3 in 2017, have had like crazy IT band pain, specifically down at the knee that locks up. About halfway into the half marathon. So this might help you. And I haven't posted about this yet either. And I'm just like, it's just so cool. But I just had this like eureka moment when I was talking to my coach before the race. And one of the guys I was staying with is a physical therapist. And I was like, could it be my race shoes that are causing the IT band pain? Because we thought it was my bike fit. We made all these changes to my bike fit and it was still happening. It was getting better, but it was still happening. And he was like, oh, it's more likely that it's your race shoes because of the instability they create, because of the foam and just like the way the carbon plate changes your gait and everything. And so I made the decision to run in my trainers. I was running in the Hoka Cliftons and not a single like suggestion of IT band pain the whole time.
Awesome. Love it.
And so I was like, this is way better than run walking the last half of the half marathon. Like, and it led to one of my faster times because I was able to actually just like run strong.
And not have to walk.
So that was extremely valuable for me. And honestly, like, I am so glad that I did that race just for that reason. So, you know, got to figure out, the unfortunate thing is to build up durability to race in those shoes, I would need to train in them a lot more. And I don't have the finances or I'm not willing to spend the money on that many pairs of carbon shoes.
Sponsors right here.
And Hoka needs to make a shoe that's a little smaller for me. So I'm a very demanding athlete. But Nike has shoes that fit me. Wink, wink.
I am a fan of the Nike. So I usually run in the Vaporflies, like for training, doing tempos, long stuff like that. And then I've raced in the Alpha Flies, and I mean it was like game changing for me. Just as far as being able to like maintain pace, maintain good feel in my legs. My only downside is that the Alpha Flies, because they have AirPods in the front, my last race I stepped on a screw and it popped it.
What?
So I have to return them now. Unfortunately, it's over the 30 days and all that stuff. But so I don't know if I'm gonna keep running in the Alpha Flies because I don't want to run the risk of like those AirPods popping. But
I would
shoes,
not even thought of that.
Shoes can definitely make a difference. About the your shoes and your gear being super important of keeping your body healthy. So just one quickly tack on that bike fit. For anyone listening, if you have not had a professional bike fit or at least a good bike fit done, get it done. I ran into an issue with my bike that I didn't discover until this year. Like I got it fit a couple years ago, but apparently at some point my stem like slid down, my bike seat slid down a little. And for the last year, I've been riding with my seat like an inch low, or it might have been more like bad. And I've had like a ton of hip issues, like IT issues. I got it fixed. It still needs a little bit more tweaking, but since I got it fixed, like I have significantly less issues. So anyone who
That's awesome.
has not had a bike fit done, if you're buying a new bike, if you're getting one off Craigslist, every now and then, even if you're just riding your same bike, go get a bike fit done, get it checked.
Yeah.
Here's your message, here's your sign, go get it checked out.
Yeah. And, just because you had one 5 years ago, like, doesn't mean you're good, because, I mean, it's not, our bodies change over the years.
Yep.
And so it's very important to get them regularly. And the general we spend so much time training to let something like our fit on the bike cause injury or reduce your aerodynamics or reduce your power output because you're not in a good spot.
Yep.
It's just silly. So
yeah,
it's worth the investment.
When I went in and got that fit, because like I've been having that hip issue for for a while now, and it flares up in the swim and the bike, but especially on the bike, like 30 miles in, it would always get really bad. So I finally went and got it checked out, and they're like, "Yeah, dude, you're I think I was quoted, your seat is disgustingly low," was what he told me. And I was like, well, that could explain a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how this happened, when it happened, but like, yeah, it was definitely rough.
Dang.
Yeah, unfortunately it happens. So everyone, also change your shoes out. You don't need more than, like, I don't know, every shoe's got some different mileage. Carbon shoes are usually good through like 250-ish plus or minus. Most other shoes are, and at least from what I've worn, are like 400 to 500. You can sometimes get a little bit more or less. Do those sound about the right idea that
Yeah. And then another thing too is you can kind of look on the bottom and see, because like I can put a lot more miles on my Hokas just because I'm small.
Okay. Yeah.
But like kind of looking at the bottom and seeing if there's any areas that are super worn down. Sometimes if my like shins start to get cranky, I'll check my shoes, and that could be a sign, like out of nowhere without explanation, right?
Right.
But yeah, definitely like 400 to 500 miles definitely sounds like it's pretty good. Some might be less, some might be more.
Yeah, it depends on the shoe. It depends on the foam. Another thing too, a lot of time with the carbon plates, where they can help, they can cause some issue as well. So do your research, talk to a coach, talk to a professional about getting your shoes and getting your gear. Cool. So outside of White Lake, again, I want to talk a little bit about all the shenanigans with Ironman moving their making what seems to be cash grabs, really. And then also now this rising competition that's really come up in the last couple years with Clash and PTO. You've gotten to do a few different races, and so I'd love to hear your opinion on the different race styles, availability, and just like what you've done and gotten to enjoy the most.
Yeah. I've done the Ironman branded events. I've done local events. The whole breakdown between like Ironman and PTO and Clash paying out their professional athletes doesn't pertain to me right now, since I'm not in the money for being a professional. Right. However,
but you should be. Is the thing, and I'm gonna let you, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like, if you're a professional in a sport, you shouldn't need a second job necessarily. Like, there's very few things where, like, if you're a professional, you should be paid for it. It doesn't matter if you're first or last. Like, if you are racing as a professional, you should be paid.
Yeah. And some more local or smaller races, if they can't pay out that much, they at least comp the professionals like race registration or things like that, which I think is great. But because to me, the people I do triathlon with and the community is like critical to my experience, and what I think is one of the most beautiful things about the sport. To see organizations not care about the athletes is really frustrating, extremely frustrating for me. And I think that those colors began to shine during COVID. I know with personal experience of how like my registrations were handled as an amateur, as well as countless other of my athletes, these people that I care about.
Yep.
To see organizations that don't care is frustrating. And I know there's a lot of like glamour around the Ironman brand. Like you get a sweet bag and you get this experience where it's a very high end experience.
Yep.
They run a good show. To me, that's not worth it to see the way that they treat people.
Yep.
And I think their message is absolutely beautiful. And I know 100% most of the people at Ironman care about the athletes and their
Yep.
other people around them. But what's forcing decisions at the top is impacting the athletes that participate. And that is just how it is when a company is that big. But we have all of these local races around us, or organizations that are starting small and making the right decisions from the beginning.
Yep.
To produce events that can pay out, or at least in some way compensate their pros, or pay all of them, and then at the same time provide an atmosphere where amateurs can come. And like at Clash, we volunteered the next day to pass out medals to the races, so like providing
Cool.
opportunities where the pros can be involved. And I think that is like, it should almost be required of the professionals, but that's just
Right.
me. I very deeply care about the development of younger athletes and the fostering of the other athletes that are in the sport as older adults. But we have all these opportunities around us, and like you get to I am friends with a race director that puts on races all around Richmond, and to be able to support him in that way means so much to me. And it's more accessible because the races are cheaper, and so you can bring more of your friends and family. They're like, these races that are smaller and more local don't have the crazy huge increases in Airbnb prices where you're paying like $500 a night and you have to stay for 4 nights. And just it's just, I understand it feels good to be celebrated the way that Ironman can celebrate you, but I think it feels better to make one-on-one connections with people, to bring teammates with you, to bring friends with you, and to just see like a local community come together for a race. So that's just me. I completely understand and respect like people that want to participate in the Ironman races because it's cool. It's a really cool feeling.
It is. Yeah.
But I think we need to use some of our money to also raise up the locals and the smaller organizations, because that's what's going to keep the sport going. Because I'm not totally convinced Ironman's going to be able to continue the way that they are.
I'm 100% convinced they're not going to. They've got to. I am fully convinced that I still think for a lot of the pros, I mean, I just had a conversation with another first year pro about this. What they're doing for some of the pros is it's not as big a deal with moving worlds, but for age groups athletes, that was a huge thing. And then also just with how prices continue going, something's gonna give one way or another, and either they're gonna have to change or people are gonna start finding other races, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, and what's tough about the price increases on the races is I understand that things get more expensive.
Yeah.
That's fine. And I also acknowledge, I don't want people to think that I'm an Ironman hater, because again, I think most of the people in Ironman care about people.
Yeah.
And they do a lot of really, really fantastic work on inclusion in triathlon. But when I go to an Ironman website and see that it is several $100s to just sign up for the race, to me, I think that that's pretty exclusive. And I know that there's scholarships and things like that, but there's people that don't know about that. And Ironman is the name that they know for triathlon, and they might think that's the only option. And so by supporting these local races that are smaller, word gets out, people see you're doing it. There's cheaper options for people. They're supporting somebody and their family, that you can have the chance to meet. It's just I just think it's a positive cycle. So I don't want Ironman to fail and fall out, but I think that there's changes that could have, and I'm not a businesswoman. I don't even pretend to know what they need to do, but I just think that we can make a difference in this scene of triathlon in a really tangible way. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I want to completely agree. I've definitely started talking a little more smack about Ironman just because I've personally been frustrated. I would love for them to get their crap together. I would love for it. I would love for them to bring back, like, because I remember my first few 70.3s, like the energy that was around them, that was just like, oh, this is so great, this is so cool. Like they brought a lot of energy, but then it's small things like when they do awards ceremony, how they do roll down, stuff like that, that they can kind of move around, that makes it more focused on the athletes, that it's just like it's like small changes, I think. But again, I want to completely agree with you. The only races I've done this year have been local races. And I love them. I love getting to meet the race directors, and like in both the races I did, I got to do interviews with the race directors, which if anyone's listening, I have another playlist for those as well, doing race recaps and interviews with race directors. But like, it's just a cool experience to get to talk with them. And the whole vibe seems a lot more relaxed, even when you have pros. Like at White Lake, there was a pro field. They were able to pay at least the top few pros. But like the whole weekend, the whole experience, like you can go down and like enjoy the whole thing instead of just like going to do the race and shelling out a whole bunch of money to do it.
yeah, for sure.
So support local. There is more options than Ironman, especially for small races. I think that's one thing that a lot of smaller companies do well, is they'll do like a sprint, an international, and they'll go up to like the 70.3. So
yeah,
like at White Lake, they had the 70.3 on Saturday, and then they had the sprint and the Olympic on Sunday, which me and my buddy considered doing, and then we just ended up sleeping in for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I can't do it.
Yeah, that fatigue after a half can be pretty real.
Yeah, I'm usually fine like a few days after, but I struggled in the last lap. That was the one downside, is like in that race, there wasn't any nutrition on the run. Well, apparently there was, but they weren't handing it out. And so I went through the whole run with just water and Gatorade, and it was it definitely got me in the last
Yeah. I did see some gels, but I think that you maybe had asked for them or something. But yeah.
I think they were on one of the tables, but it wasn't clear. And when you're like in that race, like moving forward,
yep.
At least for me, like I don't recognize anything that's like out of that vision. Like I'm going that way. Water comes, I grab it, I throw it on, I drink it, I grab the goose, whatever it is, like doing all that stuff. Like I'm not looking over to find stuff over on the table.
Yeah.
But yeah. Cool. So just a couple, like, last thing here. You mentioned you're a coach as well. Would love to give you just a small couple minutes here to talk about your coaching, your philosophy, and then I'll also attach links in the description so that people can find you if they're in your area.
Yeah, awesome. So like I mentioned at the very beginning, I'm a coach with Endorphin Fitness. We are based out of Richmond, Virginia, but we coach online as well. And we have a few other satellite locations. My role is I am the head coach of our adult training team here in Richmond. And so we have practices several times a week. I coach those in person. I write and manage their training plans, and give them guidance throughout their training. And then on top of that, I do some private sessions. So one-on-one, if you want to work on really anything like strength, swim technique, run technique, biking, whatever, you can spend that session however you want. Really, however you can maximize your performance. And then I do a lot of online coaching as well. So I've got athletes both that live near or far away. And yeah, so I write those training plans, deliver them over Training Peaks. Athletes load their data, just like I'm sure many of you guys do, to some sort of platform. And then I analyze it, provide feedback and analysis, and use that to inform the future training. I always have like the ATP or the overview getting you to your A races, but we're humans and things come up. And so tweaks need to be made unless that's what separates me from an algorithm or a cookie cutter plan.
Yep.
is that I am a human that makes changes based on you being a human.
Yep.
Like I said, I think I said I've been coaching for 7 years. I have experience with youth all the way up to older adults, like into their 70s even. I am extremely passionate about the relationship and how coaching is not just science. It is a mix of knowing your physiology, knowing your information, but realizing that you're working with a human, and things like sleepless nights, or you have a baby, or you have a stressor, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Those things happen and they affect our performance, and it is critical for a coach to be able to do both.
Yep.
I am passionate about whatever you're passionate about. And so I have no requirements as far as what kind of place you need to get in a race or your past experience or anything like that. All I care about is that you have a goal you're working towards. And that goal could just be you want to get fitter. Like I have athletes that don't currently have races that they're signed up for, right? But there is so much to be learned through the pursuit of fitness and goals and doing that alongside another person. And so all I require is that you have something you're working towards and you're willing to walk alongside a coach or me to do that. And that relationship is where a lot of the magic happens. So yeah, that's kind of my philosophy. I don't think there's one way to coach people as far as physiology goes. Every human is different and responds to different stimuli in different ways. And again, I think that flexibility is absolutely critical. If you have a coach that says, this is what works for all people, I think you should turn around and go somewhere else.
Run.
Like to
Run
me.
far away.
No. Yeah, but that's me. We are, as it like endorphin fitness, we are good at developing athletes. And so a lot of times people see endorphin and they think that we require you meet some sort of standard, but the truth is most people come at a beginner level, and through development with endorphin fitness, they start to achieve success. And so I always tell people, like, we do not require any sort of level of athletic ability or anything like that. Again, I just require that you have goals of any type and you're willing to walk alongside someone to reach those goals.
Awesome. I love it. And for anyone that has the opportunity to work with you, I recommend it because you have great energy. Like, I haven't seen your training plans, but you have great energy, and a lot of being a coach is kind of being a cheerleader too. Like, perfectly honest, it's finding ways to support people, to lift them up, to help them reach their goals with whatever that is. Like, sometimes you have to be a little stricter. Sometimes people just need support and to tell them that they can do it. So I think that's awesome. Again, I'll make sure to link your stuff down there below. I've got my links down there as well. So for anyone that wants to follow your triathlon journey, that wants to, check out your coaching, all that stuff will be in down there below. Do you have anything else that you would like to add on to the end here?
I don't think so. I think really over these last couple of years, I would have said I've always believed this, but I've really experienced it. Like, if you have a goal, keep pushing towards it. Like, I had so many people over the course of my, like, starting, I guess, with my running career, being injured all the time, tell me, maybe not directly, but in some sort of like roundabout way, that I couldn't do it, or that I shouldn't do it. And for whatever reason, I had this like foolish commitment to keep on pressing towards that goal. And it's like indescribable how good it feels to reach those goals. But I woke up the next day and I was the same Erin. And there has to be balance. And I think you mentioned this before. And I truly believe that if we can build ourselves up like in a full spectrum and invest ourselves in all the things that we're passionate about, it is just that much better at the end. And so, people say the joy is in the journey, and I think that is so true. It's so cliche, but yeah. And when I reflected on my whole like journey to getting my pro card, I realized like that's what made getting that goal so sweet. If I had, done X, Y, and Z and gotten my pro card sooner because I sacrificed blah, 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 or, you know, did all these things, I don't know if it would have been had the same feeling. And so relentlessly chase those goals. Like, as long as you're not putting yourself in danger, hang on to them and put people around you and things around you that give you joy. And I think that you're only going to get closer and closer to those goals.
Awesome. I absolutely love that. I think it's a beautiful closing message. I've had such a pleasure talking with you, and I would love to have you back on either after your adventure race in the next month, at the end of the season. Again, it's been an absolute pleasure talking with you, and best of luck in your pro career.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. This has been great.
If you enjoyed listening to Erin's story, make sure to drop a like on the video, and if you have any questions, comments, or just want to share your support, make sure to do so in the comment section down below. I've got all of Erin's links also in the description below, so if you're interested in coaching or just following her pro journey, you can do so there. Thanks again for listening, and happy training.